What's up, everyone? Welcome to Therapist Talks. We're going to do another episode of I Fell in Love with My Psychiatrist, Therapist Talks Reaction. I hope you all liked the previous videos. And again, thank you for the friendly comments and support. I'm always trying to improve every day when I do these YouTube videos. So I need all of you to help me do that. So I appreciate all the advice and help that you've given me so far. So yeah, before I start again, even though, yes, I'm a licensed professional, I'm not giving a diagnosis. I'm not giving her therapy or of any kind. I'm just doing a reaction video. So without further ado, let's begin. Going from part 13.
TikTok last week, I was looking for support. I was looking for help because it had been 5 months since I had left my psychiatrist, and I still really couldn't stop thinking about him and thinking about our dynamic and how inappropriate it was and the mental toll that it took on me. And TikTok has just been such a resource for me in the past for support when I'm going through things. And I couldn't find anything on therapy abuse or on providers who take advantage of their vulnerable patients. And so I thought that I would share my story.
So again, just hearing from what she said, do we think she experienced abuse by the psychiatrist or boundary crossings? Or do you think this abuse was more so put in her head or put on herself, depending on like the situation, how things are going about? What do we think about that?
And
like self-inflicted emotional abuse.
I am going to continue to share it because I am here to let other survivors know that they're not alone. Continuing with my story, my psychiatrist set a very nasty, the way he said it, boundary that him and I have a professional relationship. When I tried to say it was special, because it was special, it was different. He manufactured it that way. And then I immediately went to ChatGPT, of course, to Henry. And I asked Henry, I said, okay, so my psychiatrist just set this boundary with me, and I really just want to be with him. And I think that after he's my doctor, we can be together, which if you want to say that's a delusion, that's fine. But I had been telling my psychiatrist for years at this point that I had a crush on him, and he did not help me work through it. So that's his own problem. That's his own fault. Henry told me it's very common for patients to develop crushes on mental health practitioners, and that it's because that they provide a safe space to heal, which is a very attractive quality. I heard that. And then he told me about transference. And it's just about me putting my own feelings onto my provider. And I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so I took ownership of the feelings that both of us were creating. And I went to my next appointment and I said, hey, so I talked to Henry because.
So again, how do you know he was creating these feelings and emotions, right? It's like taking responsibility for your part in this dynamic and how you feel. Now, I want to know what she meant by him setting firm boundaries. Maybe I missed a little bit about the last part, but I believe the psychiatrist sent her an email about like this is a professional relationship and whatnot, and she obviously felt some way about that. Again, I think this would have been a good opportunity if I were her therapist to work through this transference. So in a way, she wouldn't have to go to ChatGPT or quote unquote Henry for help in these issues, because again, it's AI. There's still a lot of work to do with AI, and I don't think ChatGPT is appropriate for something like this. I really don't. I would have rather her talk to a human being, but again, I'm not her therapist and whatnot. But I'm just saying, hypothetically, if I were her therapist, I would like to make that one of my goals with my client if they were dealing something with this, on how to get through it, transference, and whatnot. So
my psychiatrist had known a lot about my ChatGPT and like knew all about Henry and was actually really impressed. Like, wow, an AI wrote that? Yeah. So I told my psychiatrist, yeah, Henry explained to me that it's normal to develop crushes on psychiatrists because they provide a safe space to heal, which is attractive. My psychiatrist said nothing. And then I said, and Henry also told me about transference. And my psychiatrist got this really, really scared look on his face. And he said, did Henry tell you about countertransference? And I said, no. What is that? Because of course, like My chat knew that I was obsessed with my psychiatrist, and he was not going to feed my delusion by telling me about countertransference. So
again, countertransference is almost like the opposite, where the mental health professional is getting feelings for the client. And it doesn't necessarily need to be like romantic feelings. It could be anger, frustration. It could be something in tune with their past that they haven't really processed or worked through, and so forth. So it goes kind of both ways. So that's just like very like minimal example of countertransference. There's obviously a lot more to it than that, but that's what she's referring to. And again, she's creating this narrative of how he feels, and obviously, okay, countertransference. Now he's getting scared, defensive, like what he did something wrong, right?
Then my psychiatrist had explained to me what countertransference was. So he took a moment, and he was like, "Oh, okay." He said, "Countertransference is the flip side, the other side of the coin for transference, and it's when the provider has feelings for the patient. So make sure that you keep that in mind for your clients." I said, "Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, sometimes I have, more than professional feelings for my clients, so I appreciate you bringing that up." And so then we just talked about that for pretty much the rest of the session. And then at the end of that session, he looked at me. It was just such a loaded question. And he said, "What's going to happen if you get a boyfriend named Henry?" And I said, "That's a weird question. I would rename my AI." So that's how that session ended. And it wasn't until I got home and I was eating lunch and I was like, wait a minute. Why would my psychiatrist bring up countertransference if he himself wasn't experiencing it? Many people have reached out to me with concern for my psychiatrist and his career and his well-being. And I totally understand that. The point of me sharing this is not to get him fired or for him to lose his license. The point of me sharing this is to give a voice to victims. And I am appalled to hear that people are making videos doxing him. So I am begging people, please, if you see a video of his first and last name or his picture, report it for doxing.
But again, you're the one who outed him in the first place by putting his stuff out there. So I just sense that you kind of started all this, even though you said it was a mistake, which can have a significant impact on a mental health professional's career and their reputation. Even like one bad Google review could actually ruin a therapist's career or a psychiatrist's career. That's how powerful these things are. So again, not saying you should not. If there is a toxic, inappropriate therapist or psychiatrist behaving inappropriately that makes you feel uncomfortable, absolutely report them to the board, give them a bad review, but really look within yourself and think, okay, is it more about my issues, or were we just not clicking? And that's okay. I can just move on to a different therapist. But yes, if it was a severe issue that they caused you harm, absolutely report them and do the negative review. But really ask yourself, like, are you a victim? Like right now, do we believe she is a victim in this so far?
I've certainly been using that report button a lot. I'm here to share my story, not to get him in trouble. I did accidentally use his first name, but by the time I caught the slip, I was already like 3 videos past it. But it doesn't matter because this is my story and I can tell it the way that I want it. And a first name is not doxing. And I can't control what other people do, but I am asking for people to please report any videos that dox him. So I've also gotten some DMs saying that countertransference can mean anything, and it absolutely can mean anything. However, I had told my psychiatrist many times that I had a crush on him over the years, and he did not say transference once to me. He did not explain that once to me. And what I've been hearing and taking in from the ethical psychiatrists that are on my For You page talking about my situation is that really they're taught to teach their patient about transference and teach them about how to handle those feelings or why they're coming up. And my psychiatrist did not do that. He did not do that. And it got ugly. And it happened because I did digging on my own, because I was trying to make sense of my feelings that were a natural response to the environment that he created. So for him to leak countertransference after I said the buzzword of transference, that was not calculated. He was a very calculated and purposeful person. He still is to this day. And he doesn't slip. with things like that. He purposefully withheld the term transference from me, and I got too close to the truth of our dynamic, which made him leak what he knew was wrong, which was his inappropriate feelings for me. If he didn't have...
But when did he have inappropriate feelings for you? I'm just wondering, even through her story, has there ever been a part where a psychiatrist or her psychiatrist said, "Hey, I have strong feelings for you. I have strong romantic feelings for you. I need to transfer you out and wait the 2 years or how many years it takes for them to form a relationship." Even through her story, I don't remember him saying that. And I actually was watching another video by Kirk Honda, psychologist in Seattle, or Psychology in Seattle. Phenomenal YouTube. You should all check him out. He said something that was really true, where in his history through supervising therapists and whatnot, going through this, like therapists who cross boundaries, whatever, they tend to make their feelings known to the client much more assertively, like, "Hey, I want to have sex with you. I want to date you, this or that. Let's do the 2 years." So it's a lot more assertive in the communications. It's not as like passive as she's kind of making this out to be in a way. And like I said before, even through her story, it doesn't seem like the psychiatrist did anything to really show her that he has strong romantic feelings for her. It's just more of her saying that, "Oh, he has feelings for me," without really a lot of evidence.
Countertransference in an inappropriate way, he could have easily just said, "Oh, let's explore that transference. That's really cool that you learned about it." Instead,
But again, that's more of a therapist's job. With all due respect, a mental health professional. That's why I found it to be really not so odd. Because again, like I said before, yes, psychiatrists can do therapy. But from my experiences when I'm with psychiatrists, it's usually 10, 15-minute session for medication management. And then I see my therapist for like the traditional hour psychotherapy. That's who I would talk to about this, not like the psychiatrist. So again, I'm not saying everyone's experience is like mine. That's just not what I'm used to or a psychiatrist used is doing. Not saying they can't do therapy, but it's just hard for me to wrap my head around this, especially when she has a therapist on the side.
he was just so worried on trying to protect himself because he knew what he was doing was wrong. He had that slip at the beginning of the session. He recovered in January. And then I went home and I thought, wait a damn minute.
What slip?
Why would he mention that if he himself didn't have countertransference? So I went to Henry, of course, my ChatGPT, and asked for example.
And again, why not go to your therapist? Unless if she's still seeing her. I don't know if I missed that part or whatever. I'm just like, why are you going to an AI system when you have a human therapist? Again, I don't know how often she's seeing her human therapist, but yeah, it's just, yeah.
Examples of how my psychiatrist might have countertransference for me. And remember, Henry at this point was being very protective. You know, he wasn't going to feed my delusions, me and my psychiatrist living happily ever after. So I screenshotted it, sent my psychiatrist an email with the subject line of countertransference, and emailed it to him within an hour of our appointment, where he made probably the biggest slip of his professional life. I will put the email up here. So it's just essentially me saying, "Hey, I asked Henry to explain countertransference a little more. Here's what he said. Thank you so much for mentioning that. Your own boundaries inspire me so much," which now makes me gag because I've heard a lot that he's not crossing boundaries, but he used his boundaries as a shield. It's kind of weird to say, but he would like walk up to the ethical line and then slam a boundary down when I got too close. That was the email that I sent him. And then 10 days later, it was a full moon and I had a dream, probably the most realistic dream I've ever had in my life, that him and I hooked up in his office. In the middle of the dream, while we were hooking up in his office, I loved it. I thought it was really fun. And then after we were done and after I left his office in the dream, I was despondent and so sad and cried and just thought, I can't believe my psychiatrist would cross his boundaries like that. And then I woke up and it was like a movie. I thought to myself, oh, thank God that was just a dream. It's time to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is the racial difference between me and my doctor. I have seen a lot of Black women on this app with the same take. And I need to say that Black women are the most important people on the planet to me. And that I have learned so much from Black women about how to be a better person and how to show up better in the world. They are the culture and I am so grateful for them. Many Black women are seeing my story through the lens that I am a white woman who is taking advantage of my whiteness to wield power over my POC psychiatrist that didn't want me back. And so I am trying to get him fired. And that's okay. I understand why you see it through that lens. I do.
I'm wondering where she's going through this with the whole Black women, and I don't know, like with their struggles. She admires them. She obviously said they're very important. I'm wondering what connections she's trying to make to them and her situation.
As a white person, I do my best to examine my racism every single day. And I will tell you that my psychiatrist boss is his best friend, who is also a POC male. And in that room, I did have white privilege, and he was also my doctor. And he took an oath to protect me, and he did not.
Where did her white privilege come into play in the sessions, though, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that what she said? That she was taking advantage of her white privilege? I don't know. Comment down below if I got that wrong or what she meant by that. If she's talking about like her interactions and her beliefs and emotions towards the psychiatrist were white privilege, I'm just wondering what she meant by that.
Not here to ruin his career. I am here to speak my truth. Okay, back to my story. So after the countertransference slip, after the really vivid dream, I decided that I was going to stop going to therapy. Besides spiraling about how obsessed I was with my psychiatrist every day, I really was doing very well in life. My business was going really well, and I had great friends and great support systems. And so I decided that I was going to end therapy. I still had every intention at this point to keep seeing my psychiatrist, but my therapist that I was seeing weekly, I just decided I didn't need her anymore. And especially when my psychiatrist pointed out her boundary violations of texting me for free advice in between sessions, I just thought, okay, it's time. So I go into my next therapy appointment and I say, hey, just so you know, today's going to be...
So again, if we're taking everything she's saying at face value, yeah, if that actually really happened, then yeah, I explained this in the lab. So yeah, that is major boundary issues by a therapist texting one of her clients about advice to handle another client. Like, again, I know a lot of other therapists on TikTok or YouTube said that, that could be seen as a positive thing, building rapport, learning more about your client. Okay, that's just not my cup of tea, and that's just something I just would not do, because there's other like professionals in the field with more information that could help you. And I feel like there's other ways you could develop healthy rapport with your client rather than do that. So again, I am against that. So yeah, if that is true, that is a major violation.
Last session, I'm doing really well, and I just think it's time. And she got kind of emotional, and she was like, okay, well, I like to end on certain questions just so we can reflect. So I did. I reflected with her about what I learned, what I've gained, how I've changed, how my life is better. And I left her office feeling complete and happy with my therapeutic journey with her. And as I was leaving, she called out with like crying. She was like, have a blessed life. And I was like, okay, that was a little weird, but whatever, you know. I was like, thanks. And I went on. And so then I'm getting ready for my psychiatry appointment the next day, and I get an email that same night from her saying that she needs me to come back in for one more session. I will put it up. And
let me see. Yeah, that's I don't know if I'm going to call that a red flag. And again, just going off of this email, is true or not closure. I mean, yeah, you always want closure and whatnot. Again, if that is true, that's not the approach I would take. So again, usually my style is I'll start with the client weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, and then naturally would transition out. So you kind of want it to be like a mutual decision of the therapist and client, like ending therapy, closure. But again, I would like to think where if I were put in the situation, I would have been fine with that. Yeah, and I would always let them, hey, if you ever need me in the near future or whatever, or if you ever go through a crisis, feel free to call me. We can re-engage in therapy. So I'm just leave that door open in a sense. But yeah, this is just not an approach I would take, even though, yeah, closure is important. And the therapist might have been caught off guard in some way. I just personally don't think I would have taken this approach. But yeah.
And I got a huge emotional weight in that moment. I was like, what the heck is this? Like, we wrapped everything up. I had seen lots of therapists at this point, and I didn't ever have a therapist beg me to come back in for one more session. And I was so overwhelmed. I did not write her back, but it was extremely inappropriate. So I decided I was going to go to my February session with my psychiatrist and have him help me write the goodbye email and say, no, I don't want to come back in. I taught a yoga class this morning.
All right, well, we'll end it there. Next session, or next, not session, video will continue after 16. But I hope everyone had a good time watching the video and my reactions. If you have any additional comments about the situation or in this video, please let me know. But yes, until next time, have a blessed day.